Hello everyone and welcome back to another Kerbal Space Program 2 news video, but unfortunately, unlike last week's KSP2 update, this one is a little bit more depressing. An article written by Jason Schreier for Bloomburg was published today, detailing how Take-Two Interactive decimated former KSP2 developer Star Theory Games because it didn't get its way when negotiating terms. Until now, there was always a little uncertainty about why Star Theory's association with KSP2 went eerily silent, and now it seems the truth is out. As a bit of background, some of you may have heard of Take-Two Interactive. In fact, I'd be surprised if any of you haven't heard of them by this point. They are, of course, the infamous publisher of the massively successful Grand Theft Auto and Red Dead Redemption franchises, who purchased the rights to Kerbal Space Program back in 2017. It was not long after this acquisition that they contracted the development of the game's sequel to Uber Entertainment, who later rebranded Star Theory Games, a small indie studio founded in 2008 by Bob Berry and Jonathan Maver. Development of the game was going smoothly, and the first trailers for KSP2 released in the latter half of 2019 and were met with an overwhelmingly positive response both from fans of the original game and the gaming community as a whole, it seemed. However, the article from Bloomberg alleges that on Friday evening, on the 6th of December of last year, the employees of Star Theory Games were contacted by Michael Cook, an executive producer at Private Division, the sub-publishing label within Take-Two Interactive tied to KSP 1 and 2. Interestingly, this message wasn't sent to the employees via any normal, professional mode of contact. It wasn't an email or a company-wide meeting or any other way in which this sort of message might be conveyed in pretty much any other industry outside the games industry. Instead, the employees each received an unsolicited private message on LinkedIn. The message was brimming with the standard vapid corporate sorry not sorry language, reading, "This was an incredibly difficult decision for us to make, but it became necessary when we felt business circumstances might compromise the development, execution, and integrity of the game. And to that end, we encourage you to apply for a position with us." Yes, it turned out that Take-Two Interactive had formed a new company called Intercept Games and was taking the KSP2 contract away from Star Theory and giving it to its new company instead, and was now trying to acquire all of the employees from Star Theory to come and work at Intercept Games. To suddenly receive this message out of the blue would of course be a very concerning thing as a game developer. Star Theory's only source of revenue was their contract with Take-Two to produce Kerbal Space Program 2, and the game's sudden withdrawal from them placed a lot of uncertainty around the future of the company. The following Monday, a meeting was held at Star Theory with its founders Berry and Maver to enlighten its employees as to exactly why Take-Two had suddenly decided to cut off the studio's cash flow. These so-called business circumstances that might compromise the development of KSP2, as explained in the article, was that Take-Two wanted to purchase Star Theory, but Berry and Maver didn't like the terms of the deal and were dissatisfied with the lack of clarity regarding the royalty terms as well. These talks were likely complicated after the game's development was extended by 6 months late last year as well, so that the scope of the game could be expanded, which inevitably led to a new round of contract negotiations. These were purportedly going initially well until the fateful evening of December the 6th, when the contract was suddenly terminated and the LinkedIn messages went out. It turned out that rather than continue to negotiate with Star Theory, Take-Two instead decided to just make its own company and give the Kerbal contract to them and try and wrench all of Star Theory's staff over to the new studio, leaving Berry and Maver to just try and encourage the staff to stay with Star Theory, I guess. 3 of the leaders at Star Theory, this being Studio Chief Jeremy Abels, Creative Director Nate Simpson, and Lead Producer Nate Robinson, left to join Take-Two's new company immediately. This placed ever more leverage in the fists of Take-Two, leaving the remaining Star Theory employees in the incredibly difficult position of having to choose between leaving and abandoning their colleagues at Star Theory, or remaining at the now contractless and cashless company and leave their futures in a world of uncertainty. It's not difficult to see why about a dozen of Star Theory's employees followed suit and jumped ship to Intercept Games as well. The rest stayed in what would end up being a futile attempt to salvage what was left of Star Theory, brainstorming and prototyping new ideas that could be presented to publishers at the Game Developers Conference in mid-March. However, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, this conference was cancelled, along with the last hopes of salvation for Star Theory Games, and on the 4th of March, it closed its doors forever. The developers who stuck around received a month's pay, and a few subsequently went on to join their former colleagues at Intercept Games. This is unfortunately only one example among many of game publishers forcing the hand of smaller studios, and when they don't get their way, they simply choose to decimate the companies and move development to new studios. This has happened time and time and time and time and time again. The fact that companies like Take-Two are able to pull things like this over and over again highlights just how frail the relationship between developers and publishers really are, and the huge imbalance of power between the two. I still hope that Kerbal Space Program 2 is a good game, but stories like this make me sad. I can't imagine the working environment is as positive as it once was, and this is certainly a show of strength from Take-Two on the KSP2 developers and will undoubtedly weaken the proverbial hair of the sword of Damocles that hangs above the heads of pretty much every game developer tied to a publisher. I certainly hope this is the last negative news story we hear about the game's development, but then again, this is Take-Two Interactive we're talking about, a company valued at $15 billion that couldn't negotiate a contract with a small indie studio without feeling compelled to just shut them down.